ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Single Parents Daily Podcast with your hosts,
Chady
and Evan DeMarco. This is going to be an interesting one.
This is going to be an amazing one. I'm super excited about this episode.
Yeah, so today on the show we have Nicole Pecoraro. Did I say that right?
Pecoraro.
Pecoraro.
Sorry,
I actually just referred to you as Cheese. My apologies. Yeah.
Just
That's
Nicole
not the worst thing in the world.
No, it's not. It's screw all of these people who don't eat cheese. What's wrong with them?
I'm not a cheese fan. I eat it, but I'm not like, oh my God, I'm like so excited about it. I'm probably one of that 0.01%.
Okay, well, we'll discuss her cheese issues later, but in the meantime, please tell us a little bit about yourself and, who you are on social, who you are as a mom, and how you ended up being on the Single Parents Daily Podcast.
Sure. My handle is MomTransParenting. It's my blog as well. And I started that, probably going on 2 years now, I think. Shortly after I got divorced and my son came out as transgender, and he was 4 at the time, so it was a little crazy. And so I started writing about it, and I started writing about divorce and raising kids by myself and all of that, and it just kind of turned into a meme account, basically.
But the platform, I would say, is your story.
Yeah, I mean, I make a lot of jokes, but I also put a lot of personal stuff out there because my point in doing it when I started was there wasn't a whole lot of support I could find for parents with young kids who were trans. Mm-hmm. And it's very hush-hush. A lot of people are quiet about it, which I understand because it's not very well accepted in a lot of areas, or families sometimes are ambivalent about things, so people aren't loud and proud all the time. But for me, it was we were, so it made sense for me to be more open about it so other parents could find resources. And I've had a handful of parents who have reached out to me, and even kids who have reached out to me and said, I need direction somewhere, so I try to find parenting groups or different support systems that I can connect them with in order to help them learn, grow, and understand what's going on with their kid or their family member, or why their parents are being the way they are, that kind of thing.
So let's rewind a little bit. So your son 2 years ago at the age of 4 comes out, and what does that conversation look like coming from a 4-year-old?
When he came out, he told me at bedtime, of course, because I want to sit and have a conversation when I'm putting them to bed about anything ever. Just got to bed. But he was joking with me, or it seemed like a joke, and he was saying something like, I think I'm a boy and a girl. And I was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Okay, we're not doing this tonight. And then he said, and then I think my reaction was pretty laissez-faire about it, and he didn't get a big reaction out of me. And then he kind of pushed a little further, like, no, seriously, I kind of think I might be a boy. And then we talked a little bit about it. I kind of said, that's something that some people deal with. So if that's true for you, then we can talk to somebody and figure it out. But it doesn't matter to me either way. So, you just have to tell me what you think. And then at the end of the night, I told him, let's see how you feel in the morning. We'll talk about it some more tomorrow, get some sleep. And then as I was walking out of the bedroom, he said to me, in your heart, do you feel like a girl? Because in my heart, I feel like a boy. And I was like, oh shit.
Wow.
Just dread. Because I've never, I didn't even hear about transgender people until I was in my master's program in graduate school. That's not something we grew up with that was widely known. So it was just, I don't know, very shocking. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then it quickly spiraled from that to, he wanted to change his pronouns, he wanted to change his name, he didn't want anyone to call him his full birth name anymore. He wanted to cut his hair, get new clothes, all in a matter of maybe a month. All of that happened really fast.
I tip my hat off to you as a mother for honoring your child for, their identity. There's a lot of parents out there that would not accept that. Or they would say, you are a child, you don't know what you're talking about, and not agree with a child's, intuition of knowing who they are. Because if you look at a lot of stories with a lot of kids who are homosexual, they usually say they know when they're younger, they had to hold it in, and even when they transpire that to their parents deny them, and they are forced to hold on to an identity that does not comply to who they are.
No, and I'm glad you said that. And I guess I want to kind of throw out the devil's advocate argument to that is at 4, do you know? And because I was thinking about this, obviously as parents, when we read your story, it's like, well, how would I react? And I think, probably very much in the same way that you are, is we just accept and love our kids regardless of who they are. But I think there's that underlying question of, is that a phase? Is that something that you just experience at, because at 4 years old, do you really know? And I'm really curious if there's any psychology behind this that says, is this a transitionary thing? Is it a lifelong thing? How does that really work? And I'm sure there's a lot of parents on this who are going to be wondering the same thing.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
From the research that I've done and from the professionals I've talked to, kids and people in general, humans, start to form gender identity around 2 or 3. So they start to feel that early. Whether they start expressing it right away is another story. And I think a lot of it too depends on parents, because if they know that it's absolutely not going to fly at their house, they're not going to say anything like that if they're even thinking that way. But what the professionals I spoke with said, they typically give it about 6 months or so, and the benchmarks are they persistent, consistent, and insistent throughout? So do they ever falter? Do they ever jump back down and say, well, wait, today I think I might want to be this person, and tomorrow I'll be that person? So if they're kind of up in the air with stuff, then I don't know that I would have been as quick to be like, okay, yeah, we'll do all this stuff right away. But with him, he was very insistent. And I think too, you have to consider there's a huge risk factor for trans kids in suicide. It's like a 50% risk. So for me, it was, do I want to have a kid who might not have gotten this totally right now, but he has the opportunity to always change later, if that's what he decides? Or do I want to risk a kid who's severely emotionally damaged and potentially kills themselves, down the road because I pushed back?
What's amazing is okay, what was your next steps? As soon as he said that, the next day, because you talked about changing the name, the hair, the clothes. How did that unfold?
So he actually, over that year before that, he had done some stuff that I think now when I looked back, I was like, oh shit, I saw signs of this, but you don't notice it in the moment because that's not in the forefront of your brain. You're not thinking something that extreme. So like for Halloween that year, my youngest wanted to be a princess. I wanted to be Belle from Beauty and the Beast. So he was the Beast. And he said he'd be her Beast, but that was a big, why are you the Beast? But looking back, I'm like, oh my God. And he would dress in my older son's clothes a lot. I took him to a consignment sale and he asked if he could pick some clothes out, and he came back with 10 pairs of boys' underwear. And I was like, what is this? All of that was leading up to that day. So once that came out, all of that kind of started to make a lot more sense, because I think for about a year or so, I was seeing a lot of signs. I just didn't know that there were signs at the time. But so the clothes and all that stuff he already had, but his haircut, I think, was really the defining factor for me, because I thought he was going to cut his hair and he was going to freak out, because he had really long curly hair and we had never cut it. And when a friend of mine did it, thank God, because she was super patient with us and she understood everything that was going on, and she wanted to do it, which was great. But she cut it to his chin, and he was really upset. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. cue the waterworks. He's going to realize this is pretty serious. And he was pissed because it wasn't short enough. He wanted to look like his brother. So once he said, I just want it to look like his hair. I want to look like a boy. You don't get it. And so she chopped it all off, and he was like a totally different kid. He had a big smile on his face. He was super excited. And that's kind of when I was like, okay, no, it's like, he obviously is really serious about this if he's looking at himself in the mirror and thinking, this feels right. So then I think it kind of put everything in perspective for me from that point on.
And what, at that age, what was the peer response, his friends, his classmates? That's a pretty big thing for kids that age who aren't, who don't feel that, but to witness that, was he pretty teased or was it pretty accepted?
We're pretty lucky because it was the last couple weeks of school for preschool. So he was going into kindergarten the next year at a different school with different kids. There's only one kid that went to his same preschool, and I don't even know if she's connected the dots that who he is or not. But he walked into school with a haircut and a new outfit, and he was like, "I'm a boy now. My mom said I can be." It's like, whoa. But he was proud, and he was fine with it. But most of the kids are like, okay, like they didn't care.
I think that just goes to show you something that, we've all been dealing with kind of the George Floyd stuff is that hate is kind of a learned behavior.
100%.
When you're in kindergarten, you're like, whatever, just, let's play dodgeball.
Yeah. There's no, nobody's put in a box.
Right. Oh, for sure. And my mom still to this day will say, well, kids are going to make fun of them. I'm like, if kids at this age are making fun of him, that's not their fault.
It's
someone
their parents'
else's
fault.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they shouldn't even know to do those kinds of things at that age. And he had a friend who he was playing with at his older brother's baseball games who saw him after he did like a full transition, and he just said to him something like, "Oh, so are you a boy now or something?" And he was like, "Yeah, I am." He's like, "Okay, cool. You want to go ride a bike?" Like, that's it. Like he said he was like, something's different, and I'm noticing it, so I'm gonna say something about it. But he didn't care. And I think most kids, we've been lucky that most kids haven't had any negative reaction to him.
Well, they don't know anything different too. What about the siblings? Did you have two other children? What is that like? How are you able to explain that to them, or have they even said anything as far as like their sibling? Because I know, they're all siblings. You kind of take your sibling how they are. You get them more than anyone.
Yeah.
So as a mother and opening the transgender world, I feel like it's more accepted now, if anything, especially in 2020. But how are you introducing that to your children, and how is life now with your child now as transgender?
My older son was a little confused. I think he was kind of upset because I think he felt like he was getting a lot of attention, which I honestly tried not to put a ton of attention on my trans child, just because I wanted to make sure it wasn't an attention-seeking thing that was happening, and we just kind of made it. And counselors I had talked to said, like, if it comes up, you just say, that's just the way it is, and what do you want for dinner? Change the subject to something else, and don't even, unless it becomes like something serious, you don't even need to like explain much. So for starters, that's kind of how it went. But then my older started to seem a little confused and kind of upset, and I just had a conversation with him, like, if you were sick or something happened to you, I would expect everyone to support you and help you. And so, obviously he's not sick, but if something's going on with him, we have to be supportive, we have to be understanding, and we all get through it together. That's what we do as a family. And he's gotten better where, like, at school now, he's great. My oldest is a really good kid. But I think just getting through that little bump was a little rough. But now, like, he'll go into school. The first day of school last year, he wore a t-shirt that said ally is a verb. And he knows what it means. Third graders have no clue what that means. Ally is a verb.
Okay.
And I think it was kind of his way of like showing support, because my middle was going back into another year of school and he was nervous about it, and
Can
he
you
just wanted
explain?
to do
Can you
something.
explain to the listeners what that means? What does ally mean?
Ally, we talk a lot about being allies to the LGBTQ community. It just means, well, for him, it means sticking up for his brother, standing up for people who are different or different. I don't want to label any of that, but he understands that it's speaking out, being vocal about making sure that everyone has the same opportunities, people are treated equally. And so for him, I think that was a statement intentional that he knew wasn't going to put a target on him, because nobody else was going to really know or understand it, except for maybe the teachers, but that he didn't care about.
Well, it's funny. We've talked a lot on the show about love being a verb, right? It's the same thing. It's an actionable state. It's not just words. So, yeah, I really like that, right? It's standing up, it's speaking out, and in a time right now where we kind of need that, it's refreshing to see a younger generation grabbing the torch and carrying that mantle of, okay, we're not going to poke fun. We're gonna support. We're gonna help. We're gonna, people are people.
But we unfortunately live in a world where everything's not as ideal as we would like it to be. So
We do?
I would like to ask, unfortunately, yes. What is the cons of, like, since this has happened, like teachers, are you getting a negative response from other parents? Are they like, I know you said earlier, no one's really said anything, but as far as like even using the bathroom at schools, how has that been different?
Here, it has not come up as an issue at all. They have a whole plan at school that we go through. It's similar, I would think. I don't have any kids that are on any kind of 504 or anything like that, but I would assume it's similar to that, where we go in at the beginning of the school year, we sit down with the teachers and the principal, and we create our plan for the year. Should something come up, who's going to be contacted? They ask who will who he should go to in case of an emergency, who is the adult he trusts, and like what bathroom and what locker room or whatever they'll be in. And they don't question it. It's just whatever I say goes. And then if something comes up throughout the year, I get contacted. We haven't had any issues so far, thank God. But I know other schools are not as great, but I do know that there are services out there with attorneys that work. A lot of times they'll do pro bono work for some families to help work with the school and throw different policies in their face, if depending on where they live, and try to find laws that'll back up the parents. Because I'm fortunate to have a school that's very open and understanding, but not everybody has that.
So I know that these are kind of interesting questions, but the logistics of getting older, and I'm thinking of like, football practice in high school, baseball practice in high school. How does this, it's one thing now, but as you kind of get into the older, high school, junior high school, how does that work? Have you had any kind of roadmap laid out on what to expect, like locker rooms, sports, all of those things?
The district that I'm in passed a policy last year to allow kids to use whatever locker room they identify with. I think for most kids, they're going in and they're using stalls. They're not trying to be seen. I mean, it's not something that they're proud of. They're not trying to flaunt the bodies that they don't love. It's so for them, it's silly for people to say that it's not something that they're trying to show openly. They want to hide that. They want to go and get their business done and get the hell out of there. They don't want to be hanging out in there. So I think I also think people in my town don't understand that, like with the high school changing the policy, kids have been doing that here for a long time. They're just making it a policy now where nobody can argue, or other parents can't fight that someone was in that bathroom or that locker room. They're already there. They've been doing that. So
when I went to school, we had, as much as there were stalls, I was super embarrassed because I didn't have boobs and I had a super padded bra, and I didn't want everybody to know that. But as much as I wanted to go to the stall, they were all taken. So I had to change in front of people, and everybody's like on top of each other trying to hurry up. And even I have a teenager now who has just started high school, and she's stressing out about now they're making kids swim for a semester. And it's her first class. It's her first class throughout like high school. So she has curly hair like me. So she's upset. So you're thinking about
Yeah.
girls who have menstrual periods and so on. So for me, I would say like, obviously you're having an amazing experience. Not to say that that's not going to continue, but what is it like? Because we didn't talk about your youngest, because your transgender child is the middle child, correct?
Right.
Right. So how is the younger one reacting? Because I'm guessing it's only the older one that's kind of like upset about it, and then kind of like is cool about it now.
Yeah, she's been awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
but she was also, I think she was maybe 2.5 at the time. And so it was kind of just like,
Yeah.
huh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting. And then we read a lot of books. We read like I Am Jazz and oh gosh, I can't even think of the other ones because that's the one that they just like got hooked on.
Are they trying to
But
copy each other? Where like, I have a twin brother, and I tried peeing standing up like my brother all the time when I was younger. I'm gonna admit it. I did, because I wanted to be like my brother. I was like, I don't have to hold it. He doesn't have to hold it. He can just go anywhere. And I was like, I want to do that. So
right.
places shut up. I'm pointing my fingers. Evan's making funny faces. But are any of the siblings trying to mimic their older, like your youngest one? Is she trying to mimic her brother and saying, well, I'm going to be a boy today? Have you had those moments where you're like, okay, here we go again?
No, she is very diva.
Yeah.
She's like glitter and pink and unicorns and rainbows and painted nails, and she does her own makeup. She can
Nice.
put her hair in a tighter ponytail than I've ever been able to do. And she's 5 now. So
That's awesome.
she is definitely not at all on the fence. And I think too what's interesting with her is that my middle, his nickname from since when he was a baby was always the first initial of his name.
Mm-hmm.
And my youngest always called him by his full name, but the rest of us always used that nickname. So when he asked us to start using that regularly and not to use his full name, it wasn't super hard because I had always jumped back and forth between that and his full name anyways, but she had always called him by just his full name. And so her making that transition was a little more difficult, but she did it pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of an argument I've had with some people who screw up his pronouns or his name. Like, if she could do it and she's 2, like she figured it out. So get with the program, people. It's not that hard. Just make a conscious effort to do it. It's not difficult. And everybody screws up every once in a while, but it's not anymore. It's been a long time now. But in the beginning, I made mistakes. A lot of people do, but I think it's how you act and react to when you do that kind of stuff that makes all the difference to the kid.
So I imagine this is clearly difficult for your son to go through, for your family to go through, but let's talk a little bit about your journey through all of this, because it sounds like, you've got really young kids, you go through a divorce or a separation, and then you deal with this. Was there ever a moment you're like, throw your hands in there like, shit, I want to get off this roller coaster?
Oh yeah, it's like March 2020, I think, is when that happened.
Yeah.
Get me
That was
out of
for
here.
a lot of us.
Yeah.
But we got quarantined.
March 2020, that was a really long year.
Yeah. I think it made things a little bit more difficult in a way where I was nervous about my ex had thrown a lot of stuff in at court, and I had to go back and fight for custody of my kids a year, like the following year. And then he came out shortly after that. So I was more nervous about, selfishly, like, what am I going to look like in court if this comes up? And what kind of, like, is this going to be used against me? It's in some way, shape, or form. So I made sure to talk to different professionals about that when things first started transpiring, just to make sure I was taking all of the right steps, making appointments for him to see the right people, the doctor, the therapist, the gender specialist, just so that I could cover all my bases. So should it come up in court someday ever, God forbid, I could show I've done everything that everybody that knows better than me told me to do in
Nicole,
the
that's
way
a
that
really
I should.
interesting thing. And we get so many requests for legal advice, and we're not going to put you on the legal hot seat, but in your research or in going through that, was there any legal concern that, that justifiably that, your specialist, your lawyers, anyone brought up that, maybe one of our other listeners who might have a similar situation should consider?
Well, where I'm at, it's pretty liberal, and I don't think that would fly, but I have heard that it's come up in custody cases, and there have been battles about it. Again, there are those attorneys I mentioned before that will typically help parents and families out if they find themselves in those situations, because I've seen people fight over, parents that are getting divorced fighting over how they're going to handle it with their kid, and that comes up as an issue in court. And so they turn to attorneys who specialize in that kind of thing to help them fight it, because they know that's what's best for their kid. And sometimes I wonder if it's just the ex being vindictive asshole, for lack of better words, like that, because sometimes they just don't put the kids first, and then you're dealing with someone who's really messing up this child potentially just to show that they just because they think they know better or something, or to make the other person's life more difficult. So that's,
Look,
I would say, find those attorneys.
Okay, and we'll, maybe we can find a couple different attorneys, nationwide, where we can put some information in the show notes. And that's the thing, right? Like, we all want to believe that we can, that every divorce is great and amicable. And I swear that's the most overused word when you hear people talk about it was so amicable. I'm like, bullshit. It was like no, it's sometimes it's difficult, it's rough, and oftentimes kids get used as pawns, and that's the one thing that we try to drive a message home is like, be pissed at your ex, deal with those emotions, but don't bring the kids in it. And I think in especially a situation like this is, we're coming into a place in society where we have to learn to accept more. And that means that this should never even be an issue. It might be in Alabama, and it's Alabama. Everything's an issue down there, but like you can marry your cousin, but you can't have a transgender kid there. It's like,
nice. Be nice. I got a question.
That was a broad generalization. I apologize to anyone in Alabama who's not married to their cousin.
So I got a question, Nicole. What's the long-term vision with your son? What does he want to eventually come out and say? Has this conversation come out where he's like, Mom, I really want to help other kids who maybe feel like they got the wrong body parts, or Mom, I don't want anybody to ever know about this. This is like pinky promise, our secret. What does that look like for him and for you?
Well, he knows I write about it and talk about it, and he was very open at first. He told, like, the old man at the grocery store standing behind us in line, I used to be a girl, I'm a boy now. I'm like, dude, seriously. I don't want to have these conversations with strangers. And Jewel, can we just get out of Aldi or wherever we're at and get home? Come on. But I think family and some people that haven't been quite as accepting they're getting there now, but at first there were a lot of conversations that were had with him that I don't agree with, that I think kind of made him feel a little bit more nervous about how people might react. And so he kind of closed up a little bit. He knows that people know, because my older son has siblings and friends who have known him since he was younger. And he knows that like the school, his birth certificate says he's female, his name is listed on there. If he takes a test, a state test, they have to like check their name off or something on the screen, I was told, and it's his full name, and there's nothing I can do about that without a legal name change. So he's aware that, he can't just pretend like he's not, he wasn't born that way, or that's not what his paperwork says right now.
Are you planning to change his name?
I told him third grade. I don't know. I just threw a number out there because we were talking in kindergarten. I'm like, sure. Once you get to third grade, we'll talk about that. Yeah. And third grade is coming up soon, so now I'm like, crap. Do we want to? I'm not against it. It's just that he's young. So what if he doesn't like that name?
Well, I was going to ask you that question, if you don't mind me asking, as a mother. What's making you hold off and just kind of making sure that he's solid and knowing what he is saying he is, or are you prolonging it because you want him to maybe make that decision when he gets, let's say, 18 or whatnot?
I was just, well, for two reasons. I'm not sure I'm pretty sure I'd have to serve some kind of notice to his dad,
Okay.
and that might create some issue. So I don't know what I asked a couple of years ago, and that might have changed. And I don't know, I might even be able to go to a judge and try to get away from that. But I know, like, even to get my older one wanted to get a passport this year, and even to do that, I have to, even though I have full custody, it's not indefinite, it's not permanent. So
I didn't know that you had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have full custody, that sucks.
Well, I mean, things like passports make sense, right? There's still the courts, as fallible as they are.
Yeah.
Their whole goal is to try to protect kids, and one with passports is, if I don't have to sign off on it, or another parent, I can just get a passport and take my kid out of the country where the U.S. has no jurisdiction on anything. So it's one of those things. We took.
I guess that makes sense.
I took my daughter out of the country, and it was, we had to go to the passport office together. We both had to sign the document in front of the notary at the passport office, and for things like that,
that I understand. But if the father is not in the child's life and you have 100% custody, and you still have to knock on the door and be like, hey,
there are ways around that as well. And I'm assuming an attorney could help you with that as well. But there's, I think that there are legal ways around that.
Yeah. I guess you're trying to just bob and weave and just keep it going until there's ultimately that last decision.
Pretty much. I was told to, with like, his next step would be puberty blockers once he gets to that point, which could be in the next year, 2 years, depending on, every kid starts puberty at a different age, right? So it depends on their Tanner stages of puberty. When they hit a certain point, you have to, from my understanding, you have to start them before they hit a certain stage, or they can't do it anymore. They're too far into puberty
what
to
is
do
a
those.
Puberty blocker? Is that a pill that you take?
It's I think they have an implant. I'm pretty sure it's just, no, it's like an implant. It's a hormone thing, but it stunts puberty.
Okay. I didn't know that.
And what it's meant to do is just give them more time, because adolescence is obviously a tough time for most kids. Any kid has trouble a lot of times going through adolescence, but when you're talking about a kid developing boobs, or their voice changing, or things like that, when they're trans, that's a huge issue. It can cause a lot of problems for kids. So they do the blockers to give them time to get past, buy them a few years so they can decide, are they gonna do hormone therapy, or are they okay with having these parts pop up that they didn't necessarily want. They have to kind of work that out with the therapist to decide what's right for them. I know with my son, he does not want boobs ever. He doesn't want to have a baby ever. And he's told me that. He's crying to me, do I have to have a baby? There are women who don't have babies, okay? You don't have to have a baby.
True story.
Yeah, there's enough babies in the world right now.
Right.
So I have another question. I'm thinking, I know everything you seem like a pretty brave mom, where you're just like, it is what it is. This is what we're doing, and I'm going through it. But what are your fears? Do you have any fears as coming into this whole new world?
I think I'm mostly afraid of someone saying or doing something to him that just breaks his spirit, because he's a good kid. That kid drives me nuts. He is like my firecracker kid. He is a hellraiser. He's the one who will stare you in the face while you're telling him not to do something and do it anyways, because he's just constantly pushing the boundaries. But he's also like the most compassionate kid I've ever met. He will come and rub my cheek at night and like climb in bed. Like, I've been waiting for him to climb in my bed all night or something. Like, I'm here, Mommy. Oh, thank God. I couldn't sleep without you in my giant bed with your legs all over my face. But he's been like very, very sweet. And I'm just really scared that someone is going to screw that up for him, because I would hate that. But I can't control other kids. I just have to teach him how to be resilient. And now when he tells me something stupid that somebody said that has nothing to do with that, I'm like, you're gonna need to toughen up, kid, because these things you can't let this stuff bother you as much as you do, because who knows what's going to come up later, and that could be way worse than someone calling you stupid on the playground, you know.
That's sweet. Your answer seems very like basic mom love, like, and fears, which is awesome. The fact that you're not seeing him as a transgender. You're honoring what he wants to do, but at the same time too, your fears are just like, I'm just scared of someone breaking his spirit. And that's awesome. I mean, I'm like, I have a daughter, and like, my fears go whole different levels. I'm like, trafficking. Oh my God, it's like different layers of that, but it's because she's older now. And I think that our fears change as our kids get older. I mean, your fears now are what? Do you have any fears with, Piper? I guess when you're blending families, like if you were to start dating someone, or if you have someone in your life, how does that work? Like, because I think fears come in when like a significant other is like a new boyfriend for your ex, or now she has a new husband. Those are fears, right? Because there's different layers. So
it's funny. Once I think as a parent, especially as a single parent, you recognize that all of the fears that we initially have as single parents are inconsequential. like the new person, and that was a joke, right? Like, you're like, okay, as long as why wouldn't I want someone in my daughter's life who loves her and supports her? Like, that's an ego thing when you're afraid of that. So when you start to peel back the layers of everything, the fears really become very, very like, how do I protect my kids? And it was funny. I had this exact same conversation with my daughter this morning. We were working out in the gym. I was working out. She was pretending to. And, and
she's passing way to balls.
That's what I do.
So we were talking about like the Loch Ness monster and clowns and spiders, and because she kept asking me, what am I afraid of? And I'm like, I'm not afraid of any of those things. And then she's like, what are you really afraid of? And I said, something happening to you. And she just kind of stopped and looked at me like she can't process that, because she's afraid of clowns and spiders and the Loch Ness monster. So, the reality is that as parents, our only job is to try to protect our kids, knowing full well that we're going to fail at that job. And so it's, we can't protect them from everything, and it's a cruel world. And I think, one of the things I was so excited to hear from you, Nicole, and is I think Chady said you're so resilient in this, is like, how do you work with a child or work with your children through a process that ultimately is going to cause a little bit more of a challenge than even just the everyday kid who's going through high school or going through life? It's there is an added layer of challenge there, and that's the fascinating thing about your story, and you handle it with such grace and humor that, by the way, we're going to put her Instagram in the show notes. If you guys aren't following it, follow it. It's freaking hilarious. It's endearing. It's so much fun to follow. I think there was a question in there. I just went off on a rant.
Well, I guess I want to know what, like, you're saying that you have no fears right now. It's just someone breaking his spirit. And as our kids go through different levels, we go through different levels of our fears. And I guess, does he have any fears? Does he talk to you about, like, knowing that he's different? And,
I think his biggest fear is puberty right now.
So he's aware of that. He's completely aware of, like, I don't want boobs, Mom. I don't want to have babies. This is it. And has he
he's had moments where he's been super upset about that because of some conversation he had with a grandparent or something. And it was like, seriously, like, okay, so you could probably skip all of that if we take the steps that it's an option to take blockers and take hormones. You might not ever have boobs, so don't even worry about that. Like, if that's something you don't want, we might, because then he starts freaking out about, I don't want to have surgery, I don't want to have somebody cut stuff off of me. You don't even have anything to cut off right now. What do you? That's an irrelevant thing at the moment. Let's not even go there. And I think stuff like that starts to give him a ton of anxiety, and that's his biggest fear. I worry a lot about, like, when he starts dating, how's that going to be when because he's gonna have to tell kids. I mean, it's not like he can't. So
What about you? What about you as a mom? How are you open to dating and bringing, like, sharing that, or because as a single mom, you're single, correct?
I am dating somebody
Oh, you're
now.
dating someone.
Yeah.
Okay, it makes the little conversation a little different, which is awesome because how is that? You are dating someone and you have a transgender child. Like, was that cool jumping into it? Is it
It's
someone?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to me when people knew him before, it was a transition, but people that meet him now, they just know him as him. So it's not,
Mhm.
most people have told me that it's not like he's just who he is. Like they don't think of it as anything different. So I think, and he's told me that too. Like he's
Yeah.
just him. You know, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't even think it registers
It's just
because
he's your baby. That's it.
right. Like I mean, he's a little eclectic and unique, but all my kids are weird in their own way. So
They all are.
I think all kids, period.
Yeah. All
But
people, period.
I think it's important too that people understand like what some of what you were saying, Evan. Like it's a lot of stuff. Like nobody is taking this, and a lot of fears that come with it, and a lot of extra concerns. And as parents, we're always worried about our kids, and nobody is signing their kid up for something that's going to make their life ultimately harder. Nobody wants that for their kid, but you can't deny the reality of what's going on.
Yeah.
If it's something that's going to cause tremendous harm potentially, you're obviously going to do what you think is best. But it's not like anyone would push their kid to be a certain way when you know that it's going to make life harder.
Have you
No
guys seen
matter what.
have you guys watched the Schitt's Creek show?
I love Schitt's Creek.
You know,
I love David. He's funny.
there, in the boyfriend, what's his name?
Gosh, I can't remember the name. I do just remember David because he's this.
There's the episode where the boyfriend came out to his parents, or and whatnot. And I remember watching that,
That's his
thinking,
name, David.
oh, David, yeah.
Yes, he's my favorite character on the whole show.
And so it was such an incredible experience for that character to have that. And I remember at the time thinking, like, if that ever happened with my daughter, right? If she just, if she said, Dad, I'm a lesbian, or I want to be a boy, it's like, I think my instant response is, okay, I love you, whatever you want.
Of course.
But then the process response is, not that I don't want that for you, because if that's what makes you happy, that's what I want for you. I don't want your life to be any more difficult. And I still understand the challenges that we face in a society that can be less than accepting of people. So I'm assuming that that's kind of what we're chatting about a little bit, is just, we don't want to make things harder on our kids.
Right.
Aww.
No, for sure. And it's one of those things that unfortunately, that certain things are just going to make things a little bit more difficult, and that just, it sucks. But it is what it is. I think that's why I try to teach him to just be, I don't want my kids, because my kids have had a tough life. That aside, like they just have had a rough few years. So I think just having that resiliency in general is just good to carry with them, because they've seen that lots of things change pretty quickly sometimes, and you got to learn to be okay.
Well,
Right.
and then you get to high school. So, yeah, it's 2020. It's all this, and then you get to high school, and the high school kids are assholes.
I would say middle school is a jerk.
Middle school, high school, early high school. I think by the time they're like sophomores, they start driving. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to swear? I keep swearing. Are you going to beat me out?
Just middle school and high school, but
maybe they should all be on blockers.
So Nicole,
maybe we need something like for parents where we could just block out those few years.
That's called vodka.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Or CBD. So I guess what would be the best advice for a parent who's probably maybe going through something like this? What's the best advice you would give as far as maybe resources or ways to move forward with this?
Because
there's signs, right? And so as parents, or any single parents, any parent and in general, what are the signs that a parent should look at? And then what are the next moves as far as like reaching out to, they ask their kids, hey, are you feeling this? Or should they kind of let their kids kind of take the driver's seat as far as identifying if there's something different, and is it something that they can help their child go through this? Because I feel like, you know, the fact that your son was so brave to kind of just say, hey, mom, here's what it is. A lot of kids are kind of confused and they're like, this is what I have. And that's, you know, it can't be any different. And nobody would understand me saying anything different. So I guess what advice would you give a parent?
I think just having conversations with your kids about different kinds of people in the world so that they don't feel like there's something wrong with them if something like that does happen to be true for them. You know, if they don't think that it's possible for two men to marry, they're not going to understand that if they're attracted, if they're a boy and they're attracted to men, that that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, or that they don't know that gay people exist or trans people exist. You know, if they understand that that's something that happens in the world, then if they're feeling that way, it's going to make them a lot more likely to vocalize it and tell you, because they see how you react to that kind of thing and how, and they know that you understand, they understand that these are people that are out there. So I think that's a big deal. I don't know that I would push kids. I wouldn't ask. I don't think I would ask. I think I would just be pretty open about talking about that kind of, like if I saw my kids, if I saw my youngest one start doing a lot of gender boy stuff, quote unquote, then I think I'd let it play out, see what happens, see if they start making any requests for changes in pronouns or anything like that, or kind of give it some time, because I think, like I said, that they want to see kids be insistent, persistent, consistent over time. So it could be a phase, and if it's a phase, you know, it'll go away if it's done. But as long as you just show that you don't really care either way, it's not gonna, your love isn't gonna change, the way you treat them isn't gonna change, you're fine with it, I think they'll tell you.
Boom. I think that was like the best thing you could have said, because that it goes into everything that we've been going through with, you know, just you teach your kids what's acceptable in all areas in life. And I think that I think you're doing a phenomenal job just showcasing that. And it's our job as parents to show our kids, like, even different types of foods, different colors of kids, different types of, you know, genders, letting them know about homosexuality too. You know, every parent has their own threshold as far as what they want to expose to them at what age, but I think it is important.
Well, it's all about raising kids that aren't assholes.
Pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's the goal.
Yeah. That's, you know, that's the funny part, right? When you first find out you're going to be a parent, I had all these lofty ideas of, you know, how it was all going to go and how I was going to rewrite the book on parenting. And most days I'm like, I just want to poop without her walking in on me. Like, you know, those are,
And that will never happen.
the threshold for expectation
good luck.
versus reality changes so quickly. And now I recognize that lofty goals, lofty things aside, my single job is to raise a kid who's accepting, tolerant, and who doesn't judge anybody by anything other than the way that they treat people.
I love that. Yeah. Awesome. I'd love having this talk with you, Nicole. I think you're an amazing mother, and I would love to keep in touch with you and have another interview with you and see how things transpire, because I think you are an inspiration to a lot of parents who want to take that deep breath and be like, okay, tell me the tools and what I can do next, because it is overwhelming for some parents. You're the epitome of a chill and cool mom. You're just like, hey,
right now.
but you're doing it.
Talk
You're
to me at
doing
8
it, though.
o'clock. It'll be different.
Even though you want to, like, I'm sure we all have our moments as parents, but the fact that you are, like, you know, supporting him, and I think that's amazing.
Absolutely. So we'd love to have you back on if you'd come join us again.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
I would do that for sure.
Awesome. Well,
Thank you for
guys,
having me.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure. We'll put all of your information in the show notes. We'd love for our followers to follow you. I think just some great tips on parenting, just a great person to follow. So super excited to share your message, super excited to share this. And I guess that is another edition of Single Parents Daily.
Yes. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
See you guys next week.